What are the rules of origin? The multiplicity of free trade agreements and the increasing use of trade protection measures by countries have meant that in recent years, rules of origin have become an important issue both during the negotiations of free trade agreements and in their implementation. In Annex K of the Kyoto Convention on the Simplification and Harmonization of Customs Procedures, rules of origin are defined as the specific provisions, developed from principles established by national legislation or international agreements, origin criteria, applied by a country to determine the origin of goods. And according to the WTO agreement, rules of origin have two distinct definitions, depending on whether they are preferential or non-preferential. Point 1. Non-preferential rules of origin shall mean laws, regulations and administrative determinations of general application applied by any member to determine the country of origin of goods. Point 2. Preferential rules of origin shall mean the laws, regulations and administrative determinations of general application applied by any member to determine whether goods are eligible for preferential treatment under contractual or autonomous trade regimes. In general, rules of origin can be defined as the set of conditions that products must meet in order to have the origin of a given country. What use for the rules of origin? After verification of the tariff classification of the product and assessment of its customs value, origin is the third element used for the liquidation of duties and taxes and the possible application of trade policy measures. The determination of rules of origin is of vital interest both at import and export. On import, thus, the origin of a commodity is used to the granting of a preference provided for in bilateral, multilateral or autonomous agreements consisting of total or partial exemption from import duty, the imposition of an anti-dumping or countervailing duty on imports of products whose export price is lower than normal value, thereby creating unfair competition to domestic products. The application of a safeguard measure, as provided for in Article 19 of the GATT, to protect the domestic industry found to be sensitive against a massive import of like or directly competitive products, which cause or threaten to cause serious injury to that industry. The application of sanitary and phytosanitary measures, to protect the environment and the health of citizens, prohibition of the import of contaminated food or plants from a given country, etc. Marking of origin. Article 9 of the GATT, in order to prevent trademarks from being misused in such a way as to mislead the authorities of the importing country or the consumer as to the true origin of the product. The compilation of trade statistics, to enable the authorities concerned and actual or potential investors to be built on the foreign trade structure of a given country. On export, the origin of the goods is determined with a view to the issue of certificates of origin, where such documents are required in the importing country to serve as a basis for the application of trade policy measures or a preferential tariff. The development of trade statistics. To determine with certainty the origin of the goods, it is necessary to ensure control. Both the criteria with which the goods must comply, in order to acquire the originating status of a given country, as well as methods of administrative cooperation, making it possible to justify and control the acquisition of origin. These criteria and methods differ according to the tariff regime under which the goods are traded. 1. Under the common law and tariff regime, the definition of origin has so far been unilateral in the sense that each country determines and applies its own rules pending the completion and adoption of the WTO's harmonized rules of origin. 2. In the context of trade involving the granting of preferential treatment, the partner countries shall establish by common agreement the rules for defining and certifying origin, and shall implement an administrative cooperation procedure for the control of these rules. In this respect, it should be noted that in cases where the prescribed rule of origin is of general application, consisting of a well-defined local valuation for all traded products, The rules of origin are often included in lists annexed to the protocols on rules of origin and methods of administrative cooperation. These rules are commonly referred to as specific rules, insofar as they make it possible to assign to each product designated in the harmonized system a specific processing or working rule. Finally, it is important to stress that the provisions applicable to the products included in these lists are not necessarily identical in all preferential systems. Quite the contrary, they are often different, since they are established taking into account the specific economic potential of each contracting party and the concessions that will be mutually granted. However, it is noted that the basic principles relating to the establishment and determination of rules of origin are almost identical in the majority of agreements and conventions. What are the criteria for determining the origin? First criterion: the goods produced wholly in a given country. In this respect, it is pointed out that full achievement is the only criterion that has permanent and almost universal value, despite the absence until now of an international definition of origin. By wholly obtained in a country, is meant a. mineral products extracted from its soil or seabed, b. the products of the plant kingdom harvested there, c. live animals born and raised there, d. products from live animals reared there, e. the products of hunting or fishing practiced there, f. products of sea fishing and other products derived from the sea by its vessels, g. products manufactured on board its factory ships, exclusively from products referred to in f. H. Use articles, which may only be used for the recovery of raw materials, including used tires which may only be used for retreading or used as waste, I. waste from manufacturing operations carried out in the country, j. products extracted from the marine soil or subsoil outside its territorial waters, provided that it exercises exclusive rights over such soil or subsoil for the purpose of exploitation, k. goods manufactured there exclusively from products referred to in its j. Second criterion: substantial transformation sufficient or complete. While the notion of full achievement is obvious and almost universal, the notion of substantial transformation or sufficient is not. This notion is generally based on three determining criteria. A. The change in the tariff classification of the product, which is obtained in relation to those of the non-originating materials used. Example: manufactured from materials of third origin not falling in the same heading as the product. B. Local added value, calculated as an ad valorem percentage on the basis of the ex-works price of the product. Example: manufacture in which the value of all the materials of third country origin used does not exceed 40% of the ex-works price of the product, which would be equivalent to saying that the recovery provided by the exporting country of the compensating product must be at least equal to 60%. C. Specific manufacturing or processing operations. Example: printing accompanied by at least two preparation or finishing operations such as washing, mercerizing, bleaching, raising. Third criterion: insufficient processes or transformations minimal or simple. As an exception to the rule of sufficient processing, these processes can under no circumstances be considered sufficient, even if they result in a change in tariff heading or a previously determined local added value. They are generally defined as follows: A. Handling to ensure that the products are kept in good condition during transport and storage. B. Parcel divisions and meetings. C. Washing, cleaning, dust removal, removal of oxide, oil, paint or other coatings. D. Ironing and pressing of textiles. E. Simple painting and polishing operations. F. Partial or complete bleaching, smoothing and glazing of cereals or rice. G. Operations consisting in the addition of coloring agents to sugar or in the formation of sugar lumps. H. Peeling, pitting or peeling of fruit or vegetables. I. Sharpening, simple grinding or simple cutting. J. Screening, sieving, sorting, grading, assortment including the composition of sets of goods. K. Simple bottling, cans, vials, bags, cases, boxes, cards, boards, or any other simple packaging operations. lb affixing or printing on or on their packaging of trademarks, labels, logos and other similar distinctive signs, and the simple mixing of products, even of different species, and the simple meeting of parts to form a complete product or the dismantling of product into parts, the combination of two or more operations referred to in points A to and P. The slaughter of animals. Fourth criterion, the cumulative origin. Under this basic rule, which is almost common to all preferential origin systems, goods from member countries are considered as originating in that country provided, of course, that they are processed beyond those considered insufficient, but without achieving the sufficient processing required for other goods of third origin. The aim pursued through the establishment of this cumulation mechanism is to increase industrial and commercial integration between the contracting parties, by promoting the use of materials from the preference zone over those from third countries. The function of the direct shipment rule or direct transport. Each preferential trade system requires that the transport of products originating in the partner country must be carried out directly. The main purpose of this obligation is to ensure that the benefit of the preferential arrangements requested is granted only to products originating in the partner country, avoiding the cases in which the products may be substituted or processed in any way in a third country during their transport. For this purpose, the transport of originating products shall be considered as direct, when it is carried out without passing through the territories of third countries. However, such products may be transported through territories other than those of the partner countries with, where appropriate, transshipment or temporary storage, provided that they have remained under the supervision of the customs authorities of the country of transit or storage, have not been placed on the market or for consumption, and have not undergone any handling other than unloading and reloading or any operation designed solely to preserve them in good condition. Proof that these conditions are met shall be provided by producing to the customs services the following documents: a single transport document drawn up in the exporting country, and under cover of which the transit country was crossed, or a certificate issued by the customs authorities of the transit country giving an exact description of the goods, and specifying the conditions under which the goods remained in the transit country. What are the proofs of origin? The originating status of the products traded, in particular in the preferential framework, must be attested by a certificate of origin, the form and visa of which must conform to the specimens agreed and communicated by the partner countries. Tolerances are sometimes granted so that proof of origin is provided only by a simple invoice declaration made out by the supplier or by certificates of origin endorsed by exporters previously approved by the customs authorities of the exporting country. Some agreements also provide for exemption from proof up to a certain specified threshold, in the case of travelers' luggage or small postal items of a non-commercial nature. Procedural aspects of international administrative cooperation methods. In addition to the mutual administrative assistance provided for in the Nairobi Convention, the Protocols on Rules of Origin devote a number of their provisions to administrative cooperation between the contracting parties, in order to ensure better management of the said protocols. This cooperation consists of mutual communication of specimen stamps and signatures used for the authentication of certificates of origin. Subsequent verification of the authenticity and regularity of the certificates. Ultimately, it is important to stress that all trade agreements are based on rules of origin, since it is these rules that determine the eligibility of traded products for the preferential advantages granted. For example, countries with an association agreement with the European Union, whose provisions provide for industrial products originating in the same countries, the admission of their goods into the countries of the community is exempt from duties and taxes of equivalent effect. Thus, it can be concluded that rules of origin are an inseparable part of any trade agreement. The use of these rules allows to restrict its scope of application, or to boost trade between partner countries, and promote the integration of their industrial fabric. As their name suggests, these are autonomous trade agreements that derive from the own will of the countries that have established them, and the rules of origin contained therein are therefore established unilaterally. Therefore, a distinction is made between non-preferential rules of origin provided for under ordinary law, preferential rules of origin applied within the framework of the general system of preferences. Consequently, the harmonized rules of origin will therefore only be used for the application of trade policy measures, while those contained in preferential agreements will continue to apply for the granting of exemptions benefits.